American teenagers love Apple. According to 2024 study, as many as 85% of teens own an iPhone. Why are Apple products so popular among the younger generation, and what can we learn from Apple's genius and somewhat creepy marketing strategy to capture Generation Z? Step 1. Be with them from a young age. Apple's journey to win over teens' hearts and wallets began in American schools in the 1980s. The Apple II was present in many computer labs, helping students develop a fondness for Apple products. These early days laid a strong foundation for the brand's cult-like following, which grew thanks to parents. By the early 2000s, when iPods and the first iPhones dominated the tech market, teens from the 80s were now fully grown adults. Naturally, they passed on their love for the brand to their kids, who, attracted by dynamic and colorful ads, flocked to Apple stores. A few years later, the cycle repeated. Today's young adults, who still use Apple's devices, hand down older models to their kids while buying the latest ones for themselves. This way, buying Apple products becomes natural and deeply connected to the American lifestyle. Step 2. Become cool. Why do over 8 billion people use Apple devices? The answer is relatively simple: innovation, design, and simplicity. In the early 2000s, Apple practically dominated the electronic entertainment market. The iPod, iPad, and eventually the MacBook became symbols of trendsetting. iTunes was the first service to offer single songs for less than $1, allowing every American teen to create their own unique playlist legally. Meanwhile, besides providing easy access to entertainment, the iPhone and MacBook also became getaways to staying connected with peers. Loyalty is built by offering customers what they want. Apple devices gave teens the freedom of choice and unleashed creativity, which is extremely important to them. These intangible feelings theoretically contrast with the belief that Apple products are still innovative and modern. But the fact is, innovation and modernity are tangible only to tech geeks. Ordinary people experience them on an emotional level. They feel that Apple devices are innovative, even if they aren't. For them, the unique design and advertising promises are enough. For millions, modernity means ease of use, long battery life, and convenient app ecosystem, where, for example, you can receive and reply to texts on your laptop. This feeling must, of course, be carefully cultivated through product presentations and ads. The central theme of Apple commercial is a creative person. They don't have a specific gender or age. The company focuses on qualities anyone can have. Still, how the ads are shot resonates more with the younger generation than the older one. This way, teens can feel grown up by buying the same things as their parents or older siblings. Apple also involves famous artists who are Generation Z's and Millennials' idols in their ads. However, instead of traditional ads where they would have to praise specific features of MacBook or iPhone, Apple has long used a clever tactic of shooting commercials that don't look like ads, but more like snippets of everyday life, whether of celebrities or completely random people. This way, Apple reaches the younger generation who resists so-called outbound marketing. Apple is also seen as cool because its communication is incredibly consistent. Besides traditional ads, Apple invests millions in product placement. They are so effective in this area that it's hard to find a teen series or movie where the main characters aren't using Apple devices. Even though it's pretty aggressive, this kind of product placement works exceptionally well because it's placed in the proper context. Teens, who have been exposed to the Apple logo for years, naturally reach for new Apple devices without thinking about why they are making that purchase decision. They identify with the characters, whose stories they get engrossed in, so it's natural for them to use the same phone, tablet, or laptop. Moreover, the brand ensures that bad guys aren't shown holding iPhones. Step 3. Make them feel ashamed. Very ashamed. When you are a teenager, you have many insecurities about who you are and who you want to be. The risk of being separated from the group if you have different interests can be too big a challenge. It's easier to have an iPhone and fit in than to choose, for example, the latest Samsung phone. Besides freedom and creativity, Generation Z cares a lot about status. If you have an iPhone, iPad or MacBook, you are automatically seen as cooler than someone with any Android device. That's why teens from less wealthy families who received a budget Android phone from their parents often felt inferior to their peers. The pressure to own Apple products is so high in the US that it has caught the attention of Department of Justice. They claim that the giant's dominance leads to social stigma and exclusion, partly because of the infamous green bubble. iMessage is a text messaging app available only on Apple devices. In the US, this way of communication is still very popular, despite the growing use of WhatsApp. Apple takes surprising advantage of this fact. Shame is one of the strongest negative emotions a person can feel. For years, iMessage has been making Android-using teens feel ashamed because their message bubbles are green instead of blue. Apart from the color, a non-iPhone user has a much more limited communication experience. They do not know if someone has read their message, cannot send longer messages in one piece, and photos and videos load in much worse quality. Participants in such chats often blame green bubbles for ruining the conversation. American teens admit that this issue is so stressful for them that they feel pressured by their peers to replace their Android phone with an iPhone. The solution to this problem is simple: just release iMessage for Android. But Apple hasn't and won't do that because, as Apple's own tech chief admitted in court, it would remove the pressure on parents to buy their kids iPhones. The iMessage issue may seem trivial and, well, childish. Still, it highlights a much more serious problem: how Apple locks users into a golden cage. Step 4. Keep them locked in even if they want out. Ecosystems are great because they let you easily switch from the phone to tablet, tablet to laptop, and back. Native apps run smoothly and the devices have long battery life. Apple has mastered this system while making it almost impossible to escape it. The longer people use Apple products, the more they get used to various features like iCloud. So if they decide to switch to, say, a new Samsung phone, that simplicity turns into a complicated process of transferring all their files and settings. Moreover, the problem isn't just a reluctance to change, but the fact that Apple devices, to put it mildly, don't get along well with competitor products. The company intentionally makes it difficult to pair an Apple Watch or AirPods with Android phones. It degrades the user experience to the point where if you switch from an iPhone to another smartphone, you might as well get rid of all other Apple gadgets. Step 5. Dominate. Apple expertly manages its users' loyalty. They use a carrot-and-stick approach, which, in the long run, could lead to dominance not only in the US, but worldwide. According to Bloomberg research, Apple could gain an additional 7% of the US market each year. In 2022, iOS devices made up 41% of all owned devices, so by 2032, we could see their market share rise to 65%. Apple devices are still symbols of status because they combine high price, design, and consistent marketing. Samsung, Xiaomi, or even Motorola won't catch up to Apple unless they start engaging the most influential young generation influencers. These efforts must then continue for at least 2 decades, so that today's teens, who fall in love with, for example, the Galaxy Series phone, can pass them on their kids, starting a new trend. However, let's not forget that Apple won't rest on its laurels and will always come up with something that's a marketing genius. If other device manufacturers don't play the same game that Apple has been playing for nearly 50 years, it's likely that soon every teen in the US will own an iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch or MacBook. Although more resistant to Apple's charm, Europe probably won't stay behind for long. But is it really bad if Apple is so cool? Of course it is. No monopoly is good because it kills innovation and raises prices. Healthy competition is significant for consumers, so the European Union is already taking on Apple and trying to counter its ethically questionable tactics. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss the next video. I'd also really appreciate a comment or a thumbs up. See you next time. Bye!